At 75, you start to believe you've seen every shade of human behavior. Kindness, selfishness, love, indifference. But nothing prepares you for the coldness of your own child. My name is Evelyn Hartwell, and for most of my life, I believed my son Daniel was my greatest accomplishment. I raised him alone after my husband died in a factory accident when Daniel was only 8. I worked 2 jobs, day shifts at the library, night shifts cleaning offices, just to keep a roof over our heads. That house became more than walls and floors. It was our refuge, our history, the proof that I could survive this world and still give my child something beautiful. For years, Daniel treated me with warmth. He visited during college breaks, called me on my birthdays, brought flowers on Mother's Day. But slowly things changed. It wasn't sudden like a storm, more like a creeping fog. I first noticed it after he married Melissa. She was polished, educated, and ambitious, the sort of woman who always spoke in gentle tones, but with sharp meaning tucked inside each sentence. She smiled at me often, but her eyes never did. When they moved into my home temporarily after their wedding, I was overjoyed. I thought, this is what family is for. I never asked them for rent. I only asked for company. But within months, Melissa began rearranging the house, my house, without asking. My family photos disappeared from the living room shelves and were replaced with hers. My antique dishes were packed away in boxes and labeled outdated. The curtains I stitched by hand found their way into the donation pile. Every time I opened my mouth to protest, Daniel placed a gentle hand on my shoulder and said, "Mom, it's okay. Melissa just wants to make the place feel like home." Home. As if it wasn't mine for the past 40 years. Still, I did what mothers have done since the beginning of time. I swallowed my hurt and kept the peace. But the cracks widened. When I made dinner, they'd often eat out. When I asked Daniel for help with small tasks, changing a light bulb, fixing a loose handle, he would give me the same line. "Mom, I'm tired. Do it tomorrow." When Melissa invited her friends over, I was encouraged to enjoy some alone time upstairs. It was as if I had become a guest in the place I had poured my life into. One evening, I overheard them whispering in the kitchen. Melissa said, "We need space. She's always here. It's not normal." Daniel whispered back, "Just give it time. She'll understand." I stood in the hallway, my heart aching in a way that wasn't physical but felt deadly all the same. Still, I remained silent. Then came the suggestion. Innocent on the surface, venom beneath it. At breakfast one morning, Melissa casually mentioned, "Have you ever considered moving to one of those comfortable senior living communities? They have activities, friends your age, medical staff." I nearly dropped my spoon. Daniel looked up from his plate and added gently, "Mom, you deserve somewhere peaceful. You've lived here a long time. Maybe it's time to relax." Relax. I had never felt more tense in my life. I tried to tell myself I was imagining things. That stress was making me suspicious. That Daniel would never intentionally push me out. But deep inside a voice whispered, "They're planning something." The days that followed were filled with strange silences, private phone calls, and locked doors. When I walked into a room, conversations ended. When I asked questions, they exchanged glances. Something was happening. Something involving me. Something I wasn't supposed to know. And though I didn't yet realize it, the moment that would shatter my heart was already on its way. Folded neatly on a piece of paper my son would soon place into my hands. The morning it happened began like any other. Quiet, slow, and painfully ordinary. I was in the kitchen making oatmeal. Stirring it gently the way Daniel liked when he was a boy. The smell of cinnamon filled the air, reminding me of warm school mornings, tiny shoes by the door and his little voice saying, "Thanks, Mom." Funny how memories can feel like daggers when the present doesn't match them anymore. I heard footsteps behind me. Heavy, hesitant. Daniel's footsteps. A mother knows. I turned around with a soft smile. "Breakfast is almost ready." He didn't smile back. Instead, he looked nervous. His eyes kept drifting toward the living room where Melissa stood, arms crossed tightly, one eyebrow raised as if supervising him. She wasn't even trying to hide it. My stomach tightened. "Mom," Daniel began, clearing his throat. "Can we talk?" Those words, so simple, so familiar, carried a weight that made my hands tremble. I set the spoon down. What's wrong, dear? He swallowed hard and took a folded stack of papers from his back pocket. My heart lurched. That's when he said it. 6 words that split my life into a before and after. Don't be mad, Mom, but... He placed the papers in my hand. This is an eviction notice. For a moment, the world went silent. Even the cinnamon scent seemed to freeze in the air. I stared at the words printed across the top, black, bold, merciless. Forcing my old eyes to focus felt like lifting a mountain. Eviction notice. I blinked, hoping it would change, hoping it was some horrible prank, but the letters remained sharp, cutting through me like ice. Daniel, what is this? My voice cracked. Eviction? From my own home. He couldn't look at me. Mom, it's not like that. Oh, I whispered. Then tell me what it is like. Melissa stepped forward now, her tone falsely sympathetic. Evelyn, this house is legally in Daniel's name. We had it transferred months ago. You know, just to simplify things. The room spun. Transferred? My home? Without my knowledge? I gripped the table for balance. You did what? Daniel finally met my eyes then. And the guilt in them cut deeper than any blade. Mom, Melissa said it was better this way. You're getting older. We thought you'd want someone responsible managing things. Responsible? I repeated. Daniel, I paid every mortgage bill. Every repair. Every tax. This house is my life's work. He flinched but didn't retract a single word. You have 2 weeks to move, Melissa added, more businesslike now. That's what the court approved, given your age. My age. My age, which they used as a weapon. Something inside me broke then. Not loudly, not dramatically. It was a soft, almost invisible shatter. But I felt it. The last piece of trust one had in my son crumbled quietly inside my chest. Where will I go? I whispered. Daniel shrugged helplessly. Maybe a retirement home? They'll take care of you. We can visit on weekends. Melissa's silence told me exactly how many visits to expect. None. I looked at my son, my baby, my boy whom I had raised with everything I had. And now he stood there telling me I no longer had a place in the home I built for him. A slow calm washed over me, not acceptance, but clarity. I folded the eviction notice carefully, placed it on the counter, and nodded. All right, I said softly. If you want me gone, I'll go. Daniel sighed with relief. Relief. As if he had just completed a difficult errand. I walked to my room, closed the door, and let silent tears fall onto my trembling hands. I had nowhere to go. No plan. No strength left. But as I packed the first box, I made myself one promise. They may have evicted me from my home, but they will not evict me from my dignity. And one day, they will understand what they've done. Revenge didn't spark that day. But something else did, survival. The day I left my home felt like stepping out of my own skin. I packed my life into 4 cardboard boxes, 75 years of memories, struggles, laughter, and sacrifices reduced to fragile squares of brown paper. Daniel offered to help, but his eyes kept flicking at the clock. Melissa stood nearby as if ensuring I didn't take anything that now belonged to their house. When I walked down the driveway with my boxes, neither of them came outside to say goodbye. Not even my son. My friend Margaret opened her door before I could knock. She took one look at my trembling hands and swollen eyes, and pulled me into a hug so tight I could finally breathe. You can stay here as long as you need, she whispered. No questions asked. For the first 2 days, I barely spoke. I lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of my life. I kept wondering, where did I go wrong? When did Daniel's heart drift so far from mine? But grief has its own timeline. It exhausts you, then strangely strengthens you. By the 3rd day, anger had replaced sorrow. Not wild anger, but steady, righteous anger, the kind that grows from truth. I decided I needed answers. So I visited an old friend, Mark, my late husband's closest companion, and now a retired lawyer. When he saw me, his face darkened with worry. Evelyn, what happened? I handed him the eviction notice. He scanned the papers quickly, his eyebrows rising higher with every line. They claim the property was transferred 6 months ago, he murmured. Did you sign anything? Of course not. I said, sharper than intended. I may be old, Mark, but I'm not senile. He nodded. Then something's wrong. He asked for more documents, anything I had. Mortgage records, old tax receipts, the original deed. Thankfully, I had stored copies in a metal box in my bedroom years ago and brought it when I left. Mark went through everything carefully. After an hour, he pushed his glasses up and sat back. Evelyn, they forged your signature. The room tilted for a moment. Forged? I whispered. Absolutely. And the notary on this form? Suspicious. Probably someone they paid off. He exhaled slowly, anger in his voice now. This was fraud, plain and simple. They stole your house. My heart pounded. Not from fear, but from awakening. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't wrong. Can I do anything? I asked, my voice small but determined. Oh, you can do more than anything, Mark said, leaning forward. You can take back what's yours. And you can make sure they face the consequences. At first, I hesitated. They were my family, after all, my only child. But then I remembered the cold look in Melissa's eyes. The relief on Daniel's face when I agreed to leave. The way they stripped me of dignity and called it responsibility. Family does not destroy you. Family does not steal from you. Blood alone does not create loyalty. I nodded slowly. What do I need to do? From that moment, Mark and I built a quiet storm. We gathered evidence, handwriting samples, financial records, testimonies. We tracked the notary, who eventually admitted Melissa had arranged everything. We even found records showing the property taxes. My payments were still being pulled from my old bank account. They hadn't even bothered to change that. Every discovery tightened the knot inside me. Not of regret, but of resolve. I didn't tell Daniel or Melissa a word. Not a whisper. Not a hint. Let them think I was weak. Let them think I was old and done. Let them think they had won. Because victories built on betrayal never last. And mine, quiet, patient, inevitable, was just beginning. 3 months passed quietly but not peacefully. Not for Daniel and Melissa, though they didn't know it yet. While they lived in my home, redecorating and hosting dinner parties as if they owned the world, I spent my days with lawyers, investigators, and court officials. Every signed document, every forged paper, every whispered confession from the notary, they all built a wall of proof as solid as stone. When the court date finally arrived, I sat in the front row, hands folded calmly in my lap. I felt no fear, no trembling, no heartbreak. I had already felt all those things the day I left my home carrying boxes that were too heavy for my old arms, and a pain too deep for any mother to bear. Daniel and Melissa arrived late, whispering furiously to each other. When they saw me sitting beside Mark, my attorney, Melissa's face blanched. Daniel approached hesitantly. Mom, what is this? You didn't have to. But for the first time in my life, I interrupted him. No, Daniel. You didn't have to. His mouth snapped shut. The judge began reviewing the evidence. It didn't take long. The forged signature was obvious. The notary's confession damning. The recorded transactions tied directly to Melissa's bank account. And Daniel's involvement, whether active or cowardly, made him equally guilty in the eyes of the law. When the judge finally looked at them, her voice was sharp enough to cut the air. This was a deliberate fraud against a vulnerable senior. You stole a home you did not own. The property is awarded back to Mrs. Evelyn Hartwell immediately. And you will vacate within 72 hours. Melissa gasped. Daniel's shoulders collapsed. I sat still. Then came the part one didn't expect. The judge added, furthermore, both defendants will face additional investigation for elder financial abuse. Melissa stood up so fast her chair screeched against the floor. This is ridiculous. She's manipulating everyone. Sit down, the judge snapped. And Melissa did, for once in her life, without argument. When the session ended, Daniel approached me again. Mom, please. I didn't know what she was doing. I didn't mean. I raised a hand. He stopped talking immediately. Daniel, I said quietly. You may not have held the pen, but you held the door open while they pushed me out. You watched and you let it happen. That is enough. He looked like he wanted to cry, but I had no tears left to give him. 3 days later, I returned to my home accompanied by a sheriff, an irony not lost on me. Daniel and Melissa were on the driveway surrounded by scattered boxes, arguing loudly. When they saw me step out of the car, a hush fell over them. Melissa glared at me with a hatred I had never deserved. Daniel walked toward me, eyes pleading. "Mom, where will we go? What are we supposed to do?" I looked at him the way a mother looks at a grown child who has forgotten everything she ever taught him. Not cruelly, not bitterly, just truthfully. "You're adults," I said softly. "You'll figure it out." Then I reached into my handbag and handed him a folded paper. His face drained of color. It was their eviction notice. My voice, when I spoke, was steady, strong, final. "Don't be mad, son," I said, repeating the words he gave me the day he broke my heart. He opened his mouth but no sound came out. Melissa grabbed his arm. "We're leaving," she hissed, as if dignity could still be salvaged. I walked past them, slow, steady, not triumphant, just whole again. Inside, my home smelled of fresh paint and unfamiliar perfumes. But the walls were still mine. The memories were still mine. The heart of this house had simply been waiting for me to return. I placed my old family photo on the mantel. Me, my husband, young Daniel smiling between us. "I came home," I whispered, touching the frame gently. "And I survived." And for the first time in months, I felt peace settle inside me like sunlight breaking through a storm. Because justice isn't always loud. Revenge doesn't always scream. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in the form of a mother reclaiming her life, her dignity, and her home.